is a script that we've seen time and time again. Thomas Frank and this Tottenham Hotspur side suffering a defeat at home, and especially after a performance like they did in that first half. Certainly more pressure is now currently piling on Thomas Frank, Gary. I mean, a defeat to a relegation battling side in West Ham, who's not had a win since the early days of November last year. How pivotal is this result, do you feel, in terms of Thomas Frank's future and his job on the line?
Yeah. Well, I guess time will tell, but when you've lost 9 games out of 22 in the Premier League at this stage of the season, for a club of the status of Tottenham, it doesn't reflect well on the club, the players, and certainly on the manager. And you know, I've been involved in club management, not at that level, but the last thing I would ever want is for a manager to get sacked. But I think we've now seen 5 Premier League managers sacked, and that sets the trend. And well, actually, if other clubs have sacked their manager because they're unhappy with results, then, you know, why maybe wouldn't Spurs start to look down those lines? And you know, every game now for Spurs, I think you'd agree, Danny, is a really important game. It's a big test.
It is. He's not stupid, Thomas Frank. He knows he's under massive pressure. What is it? He's won 2 home games out of 11. Gary just mentioned 9. You know, 9 in 22. He's going to know that he needs more from his team. But like I said, he's got loads of injuries. But I think that's to lose to West Ham, like you said, they were in the bottom 3 at home in front of the fans. We heard the fans booing. I think he knows under massive pressure. He's got a European game this week, and Burnley, and another European game. So yeah, he's got to start picking up some points soon.
Yeah, and the fact that this is a London derby as well, where maybe you expect a little bit more out of Spurs in that first half in particular. And then you think back to that North London derby where Spurs didn't turn up, and you think back to that Chelsea game where they recorded one of the lowest XG as well in history. It's just, are you surprised that it's unravelled so quickly? Because there was a lot of positives in terms of Thomas Frank coming in, what he's done with Brentford. Fans were excited.
They were very excited, and so they should have been, because of the job that he did at Brentford for so many years. But Tottenham's a different level. There's an expectation. Yes, I know they got to the European Cup final, and I know they finished low in the league last year. Obviously, Gary watches them more than me. But yeah, I think, is the job too big for him? But like I said, I think when he's lost Maddison, Kulusevski, Kudus and Solanke, I think for me, them 4 start, because what I seen today from the front 4 wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I think we can always look at the injury situation that clubs have, and all clubs have to deal with it. You know, Spurs, I think, have spent reasonable money.
But it's just how they play sometimes that frustrates fans, how passive they've been at home.
Yeah, but, you know, there is this perception of there's a Spurs way of playing, it's about entertainment, it's about the glory. Well, you know, I think the Spurs fans can accept Spurs getting beaten and having a difficult time if they're being entertained. But for too much of this season so far, the Spurs players haven't entertained the Spurs fans.
And the conceding late goals. I remember, you know, you went 2-1 up against Man United. That was the last minute that Man United scored to get to 2-2. And then today, again, you've got a point. You're at home. These players, listen, we can blame the manager, but them players on the pitch, once you know you've got a minute to go, you've got to pull each other in and say, right, let's hold on to what we've got. They had a win at Man United and a point today, and they're not doing that.
Do you think the players are still playing for the manager? Do you think they're 100% buying into the ideas?
You watched the morning. From what I've seen today, some of them players up at the top of the end of the pitch are not doing enough. The centre-backs I thought were good today. Romero was good. Van der Ven was good. Archie Gray, before he went off, he didn't stop running. So I feel like some of them are, and some of them maybe just can't cut it.
I thought at the end of the game, you know, and Thomas Frank has walked on the park, you know, he was shaking hands with Spurs players. You know, there seemed to be some synergy, whereas maybe early on in the season there was that situation where Van der Ven and Spence walked past him when he told them to go and clap the fans. So no, I think the players are with Thomas Frank.
It just seems like an unhappy dressing room at the moment.
And
that includes what Romero said on social media as well, not just what happened with Spence and...
Well, you know, even that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, you know, Romero's been made the club captain, and as the club captain, I think Thomas Frank was thinking that he will take on more responsibility, and he hasn't particularly, in my opinion. You know, he's still quite reckless on the park. He picked up another yellow card today. You know, that's maybe his South American temperament. But ultimately, the players need to get the club out of this hole. But sadly, ultimately, the buck stops with the manager, doesn't it?
Is it just the manager, or is there something in the hierarchy that's...
Well, they've had a huge...
It's just a result, just a symptom, and the performance just a symptom of all that's been happening.
There's been huge changes at Tottenham. You know, Daniel Levy left, for example. So some of the changes, the chairman has changed, the chief executive has changed, the sporting director has changed, you know, the head coach has changed, all in the last year. The captain has changed. You know, Son left the club at the end of last season, who was a real talisman for them. So they've undergone an awful lot of changes. And I think they're struggling to cope with all those changes.
But are they signs that Thomas Frank can turn this around? Because fans have been so vocal, they've been unhappy, and it probably doesn't help that Thomas Frank at times have sort of taken the opportunity to say a few things about the fans.
Yeah, I don't think that helps. He said that in the interviews and about the fans, but listen, he knows that. I just think he needs some players back. Yeah. You know, I play with James Maddison. He's a leader. Yes, his ability, but he's a character on the pitch. Like, you know, Gary says, they've lost Son. Then they've lost a couple of them leaders at the top end of the pitch. Obviously, Kane was a few years ago, but I just think they need a few of them back in the dressing room. Not even just on the pitch, in and around the dressing room.
Yeah, and I suppose if you look at the game against West Ham earlier, you know, Conor Gallagher, latest signing, did he impact that game enough? You know, you can't ask for too much too soon, but he needs to perform better than he did today. Lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm, but did he affect the game? In my opinion, not really.
No, I thought he was. Listen, he's not played too much. Like I said, he can't expect too much, but I'm not sure if he's the answer that right now that they need. Whether they've got enough money to bring some other players in, or it's just about getting the players that they've got back. I know from
a lot of them will be out for a while. Look, Solanke's back today, but Ben Davies picked up an injury. Benton Kerr will be out for quite a bit as well.
For a number of weeks, exactly. So it doesn't get any easier at the moment for Spurs.
I like the back four though. I know Ben Davies, but the back four, that's a good back four. I just think there's an area, obviously, the middle of the park that needs addressing, really, which is where I think they're getting overrun.
Do you think he will be given time to... How will they view this injury? Will they think like, okay, this is because, you know, injuries are drawing us back. They might have done better if players weren't not so many of them were injured. Will he be given that opportunity, considering, look, they are bottom half of the table. There are some tough fixtures coming up. You mentioned about Dortmund, Frankfurt and Burnley, but then you look at the ones after that: Manchester City, Manchester United, Newcastle, Arsenal. That's in the next couple of weeks, Gary.
Yeah. At the moment, any opposition looks like a tough opponent for Spurs because, you know, they aren't playing particularly well. Their confidence is a little bit low. You know, the players and the manager, the club are under pressure. And those are tough situations to deal with. You know, Danny knows that. He's been in those situations in the past. I've been in those situations in the past. But they've got to dig deep.
Do you think it will help Thomas Frank in terms of the pressure that he's under at the moment from the fans, that the hierarchy come out to maybe say some support or at least explain things?
Normally when the hierarchy say they back the manager, he's gone the next
I mean, Ruben Amorim is the one
game. So
at.
listen, you can't focus too much on the hierarchy. I personally think that he's got a massive week coming up. And the 2 European games, Burnley away. If you go to Burnley away, because obviously their away form has been really good. They picked up 18 points. If they go to Burnley away and lose in not a great manner, I think he's under massive pressure. And they will. But then, who's out there to come in? That's the other question. It's okay, great saying Thomas Frank, we're going to sack you, but then there has to be a plan of who comes in.
Yeah, and again, you know, if the club decide to bring in a new head coach for the start of the season, which was Thomas Frank, and 22, 23, 24 games in, they decide to sack him, well, surely it implies that they've appointed the wrong person to start with.
Yeah. Well, you talk about succession plan. John Heitinga came in as assistant very recently. He's got first-team manager experience. Yeah,
I think we spoke before. I think he's, from what I've heard, Gary knows more than me, he's a great coach. I'm not too sure about him being a manager or a man manager. I think, listen, he's only been there a short time, so maybe he's what Thomas Frank needs right now in terms of his coaching ability. But I think that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, so he's just recently, or fairly recently, been sacked as a manager in Holland. Before that, he was coaching at Liverpool, did a really good job there. And we've had him here, haven't we, on Astro?
Yeah.
And he's
Brilliant
really intense. He's an analyser of games.
In a good way,
Yes,
like the way that he looks at the games.
I'm paying him a compliment when I say he's really intense. And maybe that's the hope at Spurs, that he sees something that he can impact in a way that starts to turn around these bad results.
You think it's a good appointment?
I do indeed, yeah.
I mean, he's someone that clearly has helped Arne Slot a lot during his time at Liverpool, didn't he? I mean, he hopefully, from a Spurs perspective, that he will make a positive impact. But do you think that overall, Thomas Frank has struggled to translate his ideas to this Tottenham Hotspur side, right? Why do you think that is? And secondly, if he is his ideas the right kind of ideas for Spurs?
I like him. I personally do like him. I feel like players that have played for him like him. I just generally do feel like the players that are injured, if he had them and the way he is, I know straight away with him and Maddison, the way they would work would be a great combination. I just feel like he is up against it with the injuries. And he, like Gary said, we've lost 5 managers already this season, have been sacked.
Yeah, in the Premier League.
So I feel like people up above look at that and think, well, they're doing that, should we do that? So I feel like for that, he is under pressure.
At this point in time, stick with Thomas Frank for you?
I would say so, because at the minute he is out there, but I do feel like he's only got a week or so.
Yeah, stick with him.
A week or so. So if he loses to
I think if
Dortmund.
Dortmund, Burnley, and I think you said was
Frankfurt, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's under massive pressure. I think the fans will just get more and more frustrated.
Yeah, Gary.
I think we saw with Manchester United today, like Mbeumo's back and Ahmad as well, and what a difference that made for Manchester United. So that's what Spurs need. They need a couple of their frontline players back. Kulusevski, Solanke fully fit. We've just started to see him. Maddison, but they're going to be out for a few weeks. So you have to somehow find the answer as a coach, as a group of players, as a club.
Do you think they would give him some more money though in this window, or is it's just Conor Gallagher?
No, I think Spurs are genuinely in the market, but it's hard in that January transfer window.
What position are they eyeing?
Well, for me, the front 3 who played today aren't good enough. They certainly haven't proved to me or shown to me in any way, shape or form.
They've lost Kudus to injury as well.
Yes, another one.
And I think then also with that issue is how much do you spend, and is it on a number 1? Because ultimately you're paying Kudus, Maddison, Kulusevski a lot of money.
Yeah.
So who does come in right now and did he fight for them when they're back fit, or are they back up to them? It's a difficult situation, like Gary says, especially in January.
Yeah. Does it seem like a bit of a bad decision now with Kudus' injury to let Brennan Johnson go?
Well, I was a little bit surprised that they let him go anyway, because last season he was their top goal scorer. He happened to score the goal that won them the European trophy last season as well in the final against Manchester United. Hasn't really featured this season, but the game's about opinions, and maybe Thomas Frank didn't see him as being a long-term option and type of player that he wanted. And in football, you succeed or fail by your decisions.
Right then, gents, thank you so much for chatting with us here on Stadium Astro. Let us know what you think of Thomas Frank's tenure at Tottenham Hotspur at the moment, and if he will survive the season. Once again, for any match highlights, we head on over to the Astro Go app, and do follow us on Stadium Astro on social media for more content as well. Till next time.